on my OBS software so that I can upload this later for the people who want to rewatch it or haven't seen it. Okay. All right. So let's get started. Thanks guys for joining. Short notice, not my usual time, but hopefully next week will be usual time of 6 p.m. UK time. Yeah, so I think I mentioned at the start of September that this was going to be a bit of a dodgy month. It has been a dodgy month. Um, we initially had a trade that worked out, and there was a setup, right? So there was that Bitcoin short setup, from 117K to 120K. I didn't think we were going to get it, or it was looking less likely at the time, so I cancelled it. Um, Probably didn't need to cancel it, because I think we got we got pretty close to where I initially thought we were gonna go. I mean, we pretty much got to this area here, which was like 117, 118, and then we ended up breaking out of this channel that we'd been in since the start of September, right? So there's a few different ways to look at this. Now, on the higher time frame, if I dare to even press daily on here. So on the higher time frame, there's a couple of different ways this can go, right? So we either get an ABC to the downside, in a direct fashion like this, which in my opinion is a bit more likely, or we're going to get a flat correction and then turn around and continue upside. I personally don't see that as likely. And the reason I say that I don't see it as likely is because I can kind of count five wave move to the downside, right? And I always say that if we see a 5-wave move to the downside, there's a good chance that we're gonna possibly have a 3-wave move up correction and then continue lower. So this was kind of our wave 1 here, where we tested the bottom of that channel. We had our wave 2, which I think reached the 38.2 fib level. It was around about there. Then we had this wave 3, which was quite an aggressive, relatively aggressive wave 3, that basically broke out of this channel. We had that wave 4. So I think, I mean, obviously, I took a risky long, which unfortunately didn't pay off, but luckily, I know I told people like 2-day stop loss. To be honest, I probably should have just said weekly stop loss or something like that, because I was pretty confident that we would get back to before entry, just based on where the previous fib levels were. So I wanted to try and get people out, obviously, with as little loss as possible. I think most people got out with very minimal loss because my entry was 113,800 and something. And I think it was yesterday that we basically got to like 113,890, 113,940. So, I think most people had an entry either the same as mine or a little bit lower. So if you did have it set up before entry, then and you didn't close out, I know quite a few people did, then yeah, I think hopefully most people would have got saved from that. It wasn't looking good, in general, because there was no guarantee that we were really going to turn around here, right? This was resistance for wave 4. So resistance for wave 4 kind of went all the way up to probably, I'd say, around this candle here. Basically, it was basically, I'd say, the 114,200 level, and we got very close. I think we hit like the 50% fib of resistance for the wave 4, and then had quite an impulsive downside. Now, typically wave 3 is the same length or similar length to wave 5. If I can actually get this to work. Yeah, so if we, yeah, I mean, so there is a chance that we've completed wave 5, but we need to see Bitcoin turn around at this point. So as I said, I see this as a wave 5 move down. That essentially means that we've got this A wave down, and we've possibly got like a 1-2 setup to the downside. So if I just kind of, and I'm probably being quite cautious with this, because technically I personally think we're gonna go all the way down here. So I might change my final TP. I might possibly, if we get up to this point, which I think is likely to some degree, but I'll discuss the two different options in a minute. If we do get up to this level, I do see this as a 1-2 setup to the downside, where we would get the wave C kind of finish in this region here, may even come to retest this 97, 98K region, which I think is lining up very nicely with the trend line on a much higher level here. Okay. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get that. You can see that Bitcoin at the moment is getting quite close to oversold territory on the daily. And remember, every single time Bitcoin has gone into oversold territory on the daily, it has been a really, really good time to buy. Okay. But again, that will obviously depend on, certain levels that we hold. I wouldn't like to see this trend line broken. So, in the next like coming days, maybe even coming days, maybe a couple of weeks, towards the end of I mean, we are in the end of September, so the next few days, first week of October, as long as we're holding this region, and I think it is quite important to also be holding this low here that formed on the daily chart on the 22nd of June. And that was at 98,200. So I think this is a very, very important low to hold. Failing that, you've kind of got this level here, which is like 92, 93K. But to be honest, anything below that, and I think that's it. Like, I think personally we've topped for the cycle. And I know some people are saying, oh, could this possibly be a head and shoulder structure? Are we forming some kind of head and shoulders? And it is possible. It is possible. It certainly looks like this is your left shoulder. This is your head. Right shoulder, and right shoulder could take us, down to possibly even this neckline here, between the 66K and 75K region. We don't need to worry about that yet, though. I think it would be premature to worry about something like that happening at the moment. I think we need to just look at it now on the lower time on the lower time frame. But this 5-wave move down, for me, is definitely confirmation that I don't think we're going to see anything above 118K until we get a final move down to around 100K, 98K. I don't see that as high probability that we would. I see that this is going to be the higher probability. My orange draw lines always tend to look longer than they are when it comes to timescale. This is what happens when you try using a trackpad instead of a proper mouse. So yeah, so I think we're probably gonna get something like this. This is like the preferred scenario. I'd like to see like an A wave down, a B wave up, and a C wave down. B waves can overshoot, so we can obviously get the B wave overshoot to, 116, 117K near my stop loss area, but I've already said that, this is a soft stop loss, not a hard stop loss. So I do expect that we do get that, and then possibly come down. Typically, C waves are 5 wave moves, but we can also see it as an ABC to the downside as well in a C wave. So that's the preferred scenario. The alternative scenario is that we just go down directly at this point. We don't get that healthy B wave, and we just continue to go down. I don't think we'll get that scenario. I think at the very least, I think the bulls will try to fight this level of support here, because we are at support at the moment. So I think there will be a fight for this bit, but I mean it just depends, right? If we look at the let's look at the 1 hour. Let's take it down a little bit lower. Yeah, so RSI on the 1 hour, very slight bullish divergence. You see that maybe a little bit on the 4 hour as well. RSI very, very slightly higher than we were here, but as you can see, price was a fair bit higher, at least $4,000, $4,000 or $5,000 higher than where we are here. So we do have very, very slight bullish divergence, which does indicate that we may have the bulls step in and reverse, at least temporarily, up until this region here, where I will be shorting this. I will be shorting this region. Hopefully that will bring Sui and Solana, which are trades that we're in, up in profit if Bitcoin reaches this point. And at that point, I will be obviously closing Sui and Solana. I know with Sui, I said that this is kind of going to be a long-term trade, but I do think that Sui is going to possibly hit our DCAs. So I'd much rather not lose profits and just ride it all the way down below entry. I'd rather just take profits and we just enter into the DCA regions. I'll probably just amend the trade at that point as well, just to make it a little bit more clear that they will be like the new entries. But I will obviously signal what I'll be doing at that point if it happens. Which I would like for it to happen. I think it would be a clean scenario if it happened. It would make the chart very clean. We would be able to see a clear ABC to the downside, which on the larger time frame, you would see that as a wave 1, a wave 2, and a wave 3, right? So it's technically a 3-wave move down. Now, what you wouldn't want to see, as I said, is us breaking that level. So if we get a bounce and then break down, that, in my opinion, would signal that we are probably in a bear market. If we literally get a 5-wave move down, because we would possibly get a corrected 3-wave move to test against the trend line at 100K, fail it, and go down to like 60, 70K or something. So yeah, I mean, this time of year, like September, is always like a pretty rough month. In trading history, it's always one of those months that like is the weakest month. October and November typically is when things tend to pick up, but we got to see, right? The levels are basically what's going to tell us where we're where we're going. So I think that's pretty much all I can say on Bitcoin at the moment. Um, Ethereum also looks a little bit worrying. I'm not gonna lie, it does look a little bit worrying because we had this 618 at around the 4,000 region, $3,970 region. We broke below it. We retested it and we have rejected it. So um, this is a little bit worrying. I would like to just assume that this is possibly just a deviation that we have, and we are going to reclaim that, and then at least have a move up to retest like 4,400 or something like that, and then we might possibly break back down and start retesting $3,500, $3,600. But Ethereum isn't really looking too great at the moment. It is very oversold. But you can see it was oversold here and it was oversold here. And the problem is we're not seeing any bullish divergence. This RSI is still lower here um, than this low here. So, we're not seeing bullish divergence on Ethereum, which tells me that there isn't much strength for Ethereum to go higher at this point. Obviously, that's not going to help some alts that obviously are based on Ethereum as well. So, things are just obviously not looking super great at the moment. That's kind of obvious. This was a really good region to short. I don't even understand why I didn't call this as a region because I literally had set a stop loss of like $4,800. Um, so this is like a really good short. I literally don't know why I didn't call it. But yeah, this for me was kind of expected that we would get this low. But this is an area of support. For a much larger correction, as I said, I expect Ethereum to possibly come down to this level here. And we might see that, in the coming days. We might see that, at the start, middle of October, time, we'll see this retest here of this 50% or even the golden pocket region. But I don't think we'll get that low. I would like to see us hold the 50% fib, which is at $3,500. But I really wouldn't see, I really don't want to see Ethereum break below that low, right? So there's a low there at $3,375. I really don't think we should break below that because, again, I think if we break below that, um, I think Ethereum would have topped at that point. And yeah, it would be very deep. I think it would be very deep. It wouldn't look like the proportions wouldn't look very right. So yeah, again, this is looking like a three-wave move, or a three-wave move in the making. But again, it could go lower, and then we could go higher. I mean, we just got to see how this plays out. Because we've got our 1, 2, 3 could be done, but I possibly think we can go a bit lower, and the 3-wave move down could be an ABC structure to the downside. It is very likely that this turns into an ABC structure to the downside. Solana obviously is something that we're currently in. I've liked Solana for quite a while because I think Solana's been really strong. I've also adjusted our trend line a little bit, so we technically only have like 2 touch points on this. We possibly could get a third touch point soon. $188, $190, basically where we are at the moment is obviously acting as 50% fib level support at the moment. Our DCA is obviously a little bit lower, so that's obviously if we try to come and test this trend line, deviate a little bit below the 50% and just above the 618, so we can catch that. I'm not really bothered about DCA in now or anything like that. We're in a red at the moment, but I'm not too bothered. I'm not too concerned about it. My concern is obviously if we break below our stop loss, because I think if we break below our stop loss, there is a good chance that Solana is going to go a lot lower. Um, I think we need to be very careful of that. And you know, this is obviously what we need to be careful of, because if you look at it on the slightly higher time frame, like on the daily, we can see that, you know, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, and then here higher high, but then we've got our lower lows, um, and then lower high, and you can see that this is obviously major resistance for Solana, right? This $250 region. This is major resistance. Again, this would have been an awesome short. I literally had this as an option here, but didn't do it. So sometimes I'm a little bit cautious on shorting, but I think I need to be a bit more confident on it because they tend to work out pretty well. So um, I know that if I recognize that we have a major bull market top in place, and I've said this in the chat, um, I will be positioning myself for quite a large swing short of Bitcoin and probably a few other coins as well. Because, yeah, I mean, in a bear market, sometimes it's just a lot easier to short than it is to long. There's a lot more ROI involved in it. So, yeah, not too much to say. Obviously, yeah, we're a little bit down holding. We may come down to this region here, this 50%, 618 region. That's where the DCA is going to kick in. But if we continue to see weakness, then yeah, we're going to have to possibly close it out at some point. But you can see even on the daily, Solana is approaching oversold. Now, oversold doesn't always necessarily mean that we're going to turn around and have, like, you know, basically like a higher low. But there is a chance that obviously we can go slightly lower. But if we go slightly lower and the RSI is not as oversold, then obviously that's bullish divergence, right? So then we would expect that that is possibly the low. Just like how we saw with Bitcoin when Bitcoin was like, what was it, like 78K, and then it went to 74K, but you saw on a daily RSI it was super oversold when it was 78K, and then not as oversold when it was 74. That's bullish divergence. That is a good chance to basically, you know, go up at that point. So that is pretty much all I can say on Solana at the moment. Let's have a look at USDT dominance. So yeah, basically, yeah, I mean, there's not too much to say on this, to be honest. I mean, I've talked about this quite a fair bit, that it was expected for us to see a reaction at that 618 region here. We did see a reaction. I could probably take this off. So, you know, I've said this for quite some time. I think USDT dominance for me does look like it's quite bullish. And the thing is, it could go two ways, right? I've said that we can expect to get a test of the 786 region down here, but I think the concern would obviously be if USDT dominance breaks out of this trend line again, because we've already broken out of that trend line. I think that was when Bitcoin had gone down to 78, 75K, something like that. I think that's when that peak happened. But what I will say is if we do break out of this trend line again, I have a feeling that we will not go back down. I don't think this is going to be another deviation. What can happen, and what is possibly likely, is obviously if we do see Bitcoin go down to 98, 100K, that might possibly be when USDT dominance is going to retest this trend line and we get a rejection. And then we can retest that 786 down here. Um, but again, I I don't I'm not confident. I'm not confident that USDT dominance is going to break this level of support, even though we've touched it quite a few times over the past couple of years. We've also touched this trend line quite a fair bit and broken out of it and back down. So I'm just not confident about breaking out and going to this 2.45% level here. It would be nice. It would be really nice. We'd have like a proper alt season and it would be, awesome. It's just a little bit shaky at the moment what's going to happen. And I think in the next couple of months we're really gonna see what's going to happen here. Um, and I think we need to just be aware that breaking above that trend line is a real possibility and just not something to rule out, just to be cautious. And as I said, like I've said this quite a few times, we've got levels to watch. A lot of people didn't even know that we were in a bear market when Bitcoin was like, you know, 40K, when it had gone down from 69K. We went down to like 30K, even like 25K. People were still like, oh, no, 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 like we're gonna go to like 100K. There's a point where you have to realize that a top has been reached. We're in a bear market, shit's about to go downhill, um, and not marry your bags and hold them until they go to zero, right? Like it's just crazy to do that. You need to be a little bit level-headed um, about it and unemotional, so you basically don't wreck yourself and lose everything. Um, so BTC dominance. Now, I was quite excited that, on the weekly we could see that we'd broken this trend line because that's kind of a good thing for alts, right? So we had this really nice rally. Um, there is still obviously a chance that we come up to retest that trend line on the weekly. That could send us to 62%, something around there. Yeah, I'd say about 61, 62%. Maybe in the coming week or weeks. Um, that obviously wouldn't be good for alts, and you know, it would be Bitcoin's time. I mean, you can see Bitcoin dominance has been going up because Bitcoin has kind of been stealing the show, right? It's been quite volatile. Um, it's been going down quite rapidly. You can see that obviously money is flowing into Bitcoin quite a fair bit. So yeah, there is obviously that possibility that we at least maybe not retest the trend line. It might not happen, although it would look quite nice. Um, but we may get a little bit higher. We may get to this 60%, 61% level here just to retest and continue downwards, and then that might be good for alts. If obviously Bitcoin, um, you know, stays within the 100K region, and stabilizes for alts to catch up a little bit. And my Wi-Fi has dropped. Uh, Let me just see. Can you guys hear me, by the way? Because I think I just lost internet connection. I need to hook up the Ethernet cable onto this because it's like I think my internet is still crap even though they tried to fix it. Um, yeah, so as I was saying, that is pretty much what I see happening on Bitcoin dominance. Possible retest of that trend line, but again, as I said, we may get up to only 60% and then see more downside. Um, I'm gonna really super quickly just buzz through a couple of my favorite coins. As you guys know, there's Sui, there's HBAR, there's Link. Sui's obviously at our entry or just kind of hovering about above it. We could go down further, but I do expect to see a bounce. This is obviously on the daily, right? So we can see on the daily we've actually broken below this trend line. So what I am expecting is we get like a push to the upside, maybe like we get to, you know, $3.4, $3.35. But then we may possibly see further downside into this region here, which is where we've got our DCAs, which is why I'm a little bit cautious, right? So I think if we do get a bit of a push up into this area, I will be taking profits, setting a before entry. And obviously, yeah, I'll obviously alert you guys in terms of these DCAs here. I might even consider making the stop loss slightly lower just to compensate for possibly like this low here. But this low is like complete invalidation of the upside for Sui. You know, if we break below that, that's it. As I said, it's kind of game over. But I still wouldn't want really to see substantial breaks below this region here, this 272, because to be honest, it would just be too deep. It would just be too deep for us to expect any form of upside. I don't think we'd get it. Like I just don't think we'd get it. And you know, I would absolutely love for Sui to kind of hold this area here, and then we kind of continue up, flip this back to support, and then continue to like the $5-6 region. But again, as I said, this is all going to depend on what Bitcoin is going to do, right? Like that's pretty much what we're watching for. Same thing for even something like HBAR. So I haven't taken any long on HBAR yet because we can remove that. It's not valid. Yeah, so I mean, it pretty much got to resistance here and then obviously tanked. I had previously a long while ago, I don't know if anyone remembers, but I had set entries down here. These are quite low. I don't expect them to happen, but I might reevaluate if we start losing this kind of 0.206, 0.207 region here, because this for me is kind of like last support for us to turn around without having to have a deep pullback. And I think if we don't, there is a chance that we obviously get a much deeper pullback, maybe into this level here where you can see we've got some confluence down here. HBAR's been looking pretty good, but you know, like all the other altcoins, they're getting completely smashed at the moment. So yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that. I'll probably set alert just in case we start dropping even lower. Then I can possibly try and see if we can get a new setup. Link, hovering support. It's hovering support, right? Again, this was potential setup, didn't hold. We're not getting that impulse to the upside, not happening. So we can take that off. Level of resistance reached, broke out of that trend line. Support is here. Okay, this is your support. Below this, yeah, much lower. Much lower for Link. I wouldn't say that we're gonna get a very clean journey to all-time highs if we break this support. Because you can see, right, like it's very clear to see this is kind of your midline. This is your midline. I mean, this is probably one of the nicest charts. That's why I like it so much, because it's very clean. It's very obvious what's going on, right? And this is your midline. And you can see that that $17 region, that $17, $18 region is basically where we had our midline. We had it as resistance here. We tested it, failed, came back down to retest that $10, $11 region, um, and broke above it. And now we're obviously coming down. We've broken out of this upward trend line, and we're coming back down to test possibly this level here. So we are in support, but don't be surprised if we go lower, because there is obviously a possibility that we go lower. $18, $19 is not unreasonable for Link. We've already reached $19.82, is what the low on the weekly is so far. So don't be surprised if we go down even to $19. I will look at possibly setting up a Link leverage trade, just because Link is such a nice chart to trade. And that's probably all I'm gonna talk about. Stablecoin dominance, we got rejection, signs of reversal. Yeah, let's have a look at that. Let's have a look at that. I always forget what the ticker is for it, because let's have a look. Is this the right ticker? I don't tend to look at stablecoin dominance, I admit. I do tend to just look at USDT and Bitcoin dominance. Though I think... No, that's just market cap. I think it was the other one. Definitely would have expected to see way more data. Yeah, strange. Not sure if I've just not selected the right one, but it's all good. I've definitely drawn fibs on this a long while ago, so it's probably the right one. But we can roll with it for a bit. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, okay. Like, we are at a key point here. Just really annoyed that we haven't got previous data to show this, but it's fine. Yeah, you can see that we're at a key point here. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's probably a bit early to say that we've got a clean rejection. But yeah, this is obviously an area of resistance for stablecoin dominance. We just got to keep an eye on this. But there's, again, there's obviously other charts that we can look at as well. As I said, like Bitcoin dominance, USDT dominance, Bitcoin itself. They all will correlate with stablecoin dominance, right? Like, you will obviously see a correlation between all of them. And in this case, obviously with stablecoin dominance, you can see we are at resistance. If we look at it on the slightly lower time frame, we could possibly conclude that we are getting a rejection if we break below 8.2, say 8.3%. Yeah, so I think we actually do get a proper rejection and break down from here. This is the potential scenario that will happen. But we need to see that. I mean, yes, it looks like rejection, rejection, rejection. We just need to keep an eye and see if we actually break below that level there. Cool. Okay. I think that's yeah, buy low, sell high, exactly. I think I'm gonna leave it there because I'm like really tired and feel like crap. But hopefully that was, enough for you guys just to kind of get my outlook on what's going on at the moment. You know, stop losses haven't changed for Solana and Sui. We just need to keep an eye on what's going on. The next few days, week, end of September. I mean, we're literally approaching end of the month in like 4 days, and there's always like crazy volatility for the monthly candle close. So yeah, hold tight is pretty much what I'll say. Don't over leverage, don't risk too much. This is going to be a bumpy ride. September, October are the months where a lot of traders get completely wiped out. So be one of those traders. Um, so stay safe, and I will be in the chats if you guys need me. Safe trading. Peace out.